Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Morton, and welcome to my podcast, which is entitled A Cup of Joe. This is a podcast dedicated to health and wellness. So we're going to talk about it all. And I love this subject. I'm passionate about it. And I want you to know something. I'm grateful to be a part of your journey. And again, all the different things that we're talking about are going to help you understand that you hold the key and that your success is in your hands and greatness is out there for you.
This podcast is a 98 Studios production.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of A Cup of Joe. My name is Joe Morton, and I am so thrilled to be joined by such a good, dear friend, Lance Schiffman, and my son, Cayden, of course, and we're going to talk about some incredible adventures that we've had climbing Kilimanjaro and Elbrus in Russia. So, Lance, we've been friends a long time.
We have.
We've invested together. We've invested in companies together. We've climbed mountains together. We've trained for events and done events together.
Yeah.
Ironman trainings together. We've gone to concerts together, long time. And of course, my son, Cayden.
You've been my dad together.
I have been your dad for 27 years?
Almost your whole life.
Yeah, almost.
Really close.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so thrilled to have the two of you. Is that how it works? Yeah.
That's what my daughters told me.
I've known mom longer, so.
Yeah. So I wanted to do a podcast on our adventures of climbing Kilimanjaro and Elbrus. We could talk about Rainier too, but there's only so much time that we can dive into this. But I wanted to get into it because it's such a great experience. We're talking 11 years? No, it'll been 11 years ago.
Did we climb Kilimanjaro?
2012.
Yeah. It'll be 11 years ago.
Wow.
And it was kind of fun the way it happened. I remember you were 16, I guess, 16 years old at the time. Very adventurous. Cayden's always done everything from rock climbing and you'd climbed King's Peak, I think at least once or twice at that point in Timp and whatnot. And I knew I wanted to do something unique. I was in this space in my life. I think both of us were kind of going through our own journey. Let's just put it that way.
Yep.
And I thought, I got to do something to break out. I got to do something. I want to do Kilimanjaro. And I mentioned it to you and you were like, I'm in. That was it.
Yeah.
It was like that fast, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah. You've gotten me in some crazy adventures, Joe.
It was fun. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. Other than doing Timp together and, doing King's Peak and whatnot. And King's Peak's decent. What is it?
13,000. Yeah.
13,000, 13,500. It's the highest peak in Utah.
Yeah. Let's do Kilimanjaro in Africa. Tanzania. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know what country it was in. I just we're going to do this. Yep. It's the highest peak in Africa. The height of it is in meters, 5895 and 19,341 feet. Yeah, I would have never done that if you told me that.
Did you know before we even went?
No.
Yeah.
No.
We had to look it up
for the ride.
I just follow Joe.
Yeah.
And someone might be watching this going, I've always wanted to do Kilimanjaro. It's kind of one of those bucket list things.
It is, yeah.
I mentioned it to my doctor, for example, and he's like, I did Kilimanjaro. Oh my gosh. He came on, get very excited about it. I talked to my a family member up in Canada who had done it as well and talked about her experience going through it. And it's really neat when you can connect with someone and the people you meet along the journey. But I didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah.
And we just started. Did you? You were 16.
I was 16. Yeah. I did backpacking and it sounded like a big adventure. I'd heard about Kilimanjaro. Yeah. Yeah. I looked up to both of you guys on a lot of I remember the bike races that you guys did and different events together. And then obviously with seeing you guys work together in business settings. But I was just kind of like, these guys are people I look up to. I like backpacking and let's do it.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much fun.
What drew you there, Lance?
It felt like the next thing to do, right? From all the bike races that we were in and just endurance things that we were doing. You had already done Ironman, and I'm like, I want to train for an Ironman. I think I'll go climb a mountain.
Yeah.
Well, let's go do Kilimanjaro. Let's go to Tanzania. And I'm like, and you know what? I want some Tanzanite too. So.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. We went out and like search different jewelers.
Like it's the only place in the world, right?
Yeah. Well, remember they had the armed guards that ushered us into because the mines were right next to the airport. So we went right next to where it was at. And
I bought a piece of tanzanite.
Yeah.
You remember what it was worth when you came back? We paid a couple $100 for it. It was like thousands of dollars.
Well, it became the rarest gem after the mine had flooded, remember? So yeah, it's crazy. It was like, what's 1,000 times more rare than diamonds.
It's incredible. What an experience.
Getting that. So it was.
What an experience that was. You know, we show up in Tanzania. I think you and I were in South Africa first, and I think we ended up meeting with you in Tanzania.
Yeah.
And there was a couple other people were supposed to come with us, and they didn't end up coming.
Yep.
And so if you're going to end up climbing Kilimanjaro, by the way, you have to go with guides. It's not like a mountain that you I just want to go climb Kilimanjaro. You have to have guides. And so how many guys did we have? It's pretty common. Like
a whole team. Yeah.
Like a whole team.
There was a person per climber, I think.
And they're amazing.
We worked with them. Yeah.
And then a couple of porters, because that's their economy, right? You had to have a guide and 1 or 2 porters.
Yeah.
I wish they had carried my backpack.
I think they carried most of our stuff, didn't they?
Well, no.
No,
they did. They
were amazing, though.
They carried almost everything.
Yeah. I remember that being, I prepped to carry a much heavier backpack.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of nice.
But it's part of their it's part of their economy, though. I think it was like 70% unemployment or something at the time, which is really unfortunate. So we were doing a good. I mean, they loved it. They were so happy and such incredible athletes. Those guys.
Oh, incredible!
Oh my goodness,
I do it all the time.
It is amazing. So we went through different climatic zones, which was really quite a neat experience. Do you remember them, guys?
I honestly don't. I remember
I had to look it up.
It was like kind of rainforest, tundra, like high desert kind of thing. I don't remember exactly.
Rainforest was the first.
Yeah.
And then the Arctic zone, Alpine zone, Alpine desert, moorland. That one I remember. Cultivated zone, and then the summit zone.
Yeah.
Crazy. But that rainforest was wild, eh?
Yeah. It was raining the whole time we were in that
monkeys
area. Yeah.
All the animals. We're walking through peanut butter.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
It's crazy.
Especially on the way down.
Yeah.
I remember it because we were sliding. But.
And it's really interesting to think it's the highest peak in Africa, 19,300 feet. There's snow on the top. I mean, there's snows of Kilimanjaro. And yet you're starting at so far down. I mean, you really go a long ways.
I mean, what is it? It's 50 miles round trip, right? Is what we did.
We were supposed to do it. We were supposed to do 7 days, and we ended up knocking off 1 day.
Yep.
Which we did the route, by the way. There's multiple routes you can take. Ours was Machombe. And was it Machombe? Machombe route. And it's generally a 7-day route, but we ended up knocking off 1 day.
And it's because we're so awesome. I mean, honestly.
Do you remember that? Okay, so
we sang our way to the top.
We did.
Yeah, like 180 songs, if you remember. And then we sang Africa at the top. We had to.
It would have done them a disservice if we didn't respect the song.
Yeah, of course. So. I'll never forget that. Well, we sang it a couple times during.
Yeah.
There was that one moment, though. I wish we had a video. I don't know. There's got to be a video.
I think I do.
Do you have a video?
I think I do.
It was so fun.
You breakdancing.
Breakdancing on the side of Kilimanjaro.
Cayden and I serenading the whole camp, singing Toto Africa.
Well, and I remember, because I didn't see that video until maybe 2 years later.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that it sounded really good when we were up there. And then I listened to it back, and I'm like 16 years old, and you can tell I'm 16 when we're singing this. And it was just
but it was my GoPro.
Yeah,
the mic wasn't.
And the
that
mic,
good.
well, yeah.
Because
So
I
it's the
thought
mic's fault.
we sounded amazing. We could actually open for Toto, I think.
We could.
With your connections, we might be able
maybe
to.
we'll do it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But I did breakdance on there, didn't I?
Phenomenal. And then all the porters and the guides joined, but they looked like rubber noodles trying to break dance with Joe. And Joe's a really good break dancer.
So
a little bit of the history of my past.
It was so much fun.
And that brings up a point. One of the fun things about this is when you get to camp, you feel people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Like everywhere.
Yep.
It was such a cool experience.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, and by the way, there was a person that was supposed to climb with a whole group of people. They all canceled at the last minute. Remember? Tara.
Yeah. Because she ended up climbing with us.
From San Diego.
Did she end up maybe camp 2? She was like by herself. She had this whole group of porters and guides, like 6 or 7 of them for just her. And she would see us. She was always like next camp to us. And so she'd come over and we'd play cards at night. And
we're like, hey, why don't you just join us? And remember, the 2 guides were like, they're not very good friends. And we'll take care of that. We're like, you 2 have to work together. She's climbing with us. So she climbed the rest of the time with us. She was amazing.
Yeah, she was great. And she ended up joining us for Elbrus too.
Strong.
She was really cool.
Yeah.
Cool part of the journey,
Absolutely.
Now, remember coming up when you come out of the rainforest, do you remember this, guys? When you get to, I don't know what camp it was. I can't remember, second camp or so. It's like you can look out, all you see is clouds.
I remember that. Yeah, it was euphoric. Every level was different. It was a different experience every day. Yeah, it was. And then I don't know how much hot chocolate we drank.
Oh, yeah. Hot chocolate.
Gallons.
The tea, too. They did the hot chocolate and tea. And we played gin rummy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
The porters were always so nice. This was a fun word that they introduced us to. Do you remember what it was? Slowly, pole.
Pole. Yeah.
They'd always say pole. And I remember this when at the beginning, the guide said something like, he was asking us about ourselves. And I said, and he asked about our fitness level. And I mentioned that I do Ironmans. And he's like, you guys are usually the ones that drop the first. I'm like, do you remember him saying that?
Yeah.
I remember thinking, no, what are you talking about? Drop the first.
Yeah.
He says, because you're too aggressive. You don't respect the mountain so much. You think, and I remember thinking, don't you tell me that. And sure enough, I got to base camp. And remember that, guys? I threw up like everything. I couldn't.
On Summit Morning, right? Oh, yeah. I remember that.
I threw up everything.
Yeah. Yes, you did.
Well, I ended up making it up. I ended up making up, but he was right. I didn't understand what elevation and altitude does to a person.
And it was so much higher than we'd ever climbed too.
And because it's Joe, he did it with no food.
Yeah.
So he still showed us up.
Chocolate bars and stuff.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have. I can honestly tell everyone here, I wouldn't have made it up without you 2. Because I was having a hard time with elevation.
Yeah.
You guys were laughing and the whole pole, all that summit day. We got up pretty fast too. We got up when it was still like dark.
45 minutes early is what they said. And they said, what? You can only stay up here for 10, 15 minutes, summit. And we're like, no, we want to see the sun rise, So he's like, no, we have to go back down. And if you remember when we were coming down, we're about 30 minutes into it. And then all of a sudden the sun broke and it was on fire. And here was Kenya and Tanzania. And the sun just went fire across the sky. And we were just like looking at each other. And then we looked back up on the mountain and there's the ice walls of Kilimanjaro. And we're like, all right, this is why we did it. Yeah, it was just
magical,
peaceful and surreal.
Yeah, surreal for sure.
That moment when standing on the top of Kilimanjaro, the top of Africa, appropriate to sing the song by Toto.
Yep.
And to see the lights of Kenya on this side and then Tanzania on that side. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was
and it's
amazing.
like you could see almost all throughout Africa,
Yeah, we could.
Wow.
Yeah, if anybody's thinking about it, they should do it.
It's amazing.
Like they shouldn't even hesitate.
Definitely take the time. Definitely take the time to climb and acclimatize. We chopped off one day. It was a little tough on me. Elevation got to me. But we made it,
Toughest part was the descent, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
the descent, because it was so fast.
Yeah.
Because it was like we had spent 4 or 5 days going up. You do acclimate along that way, but then coming down, we didn't
flew.
sleep that night to
Yeah.
go to the summit, and then we went all the way down. And yeah, you could
flew
feel
down.
it. Yeah, you could feel it for sure.
Like Elbrus, we've just flew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So going into it, this was something that we did. I mean, Cayden was just game. Hey, I'm in. I'm going to go do this with Joe and Lance, with Dad and Lance. For me, I was in a space where I needed to do almost like a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And you hear that a lot about mountaineering. Did you experience that at all, Lance, kind of leading up to it and the experience of it?
Some of the training, yes, but I didn't experience it until I was on the mountain. Just being in the elements, just being in nature, just finding that peace, shutting everything off, and just being present with myself was the key. And we've talked about this. This is why you go on to these treks and these mountains and these endurance things, just to tap into you. Mm-hmm. And it was magical, like absolute magic. Like it transforms you on the mountain.
And it's something that it's hard to experience, like in the world we live in today, to be able to shut these off entirely where you cannot use them.
Yeah. Yep.
Like you couldn't even use it if you wanted to use it.
Yeah.
And to go for our 6 days, shut it down, and just be in your head in conversations. When getting up to those altitudes, I had to go deep.
Yeah.
Because you guys were talking and yakking it up, and it really was quite.
No, you were yakking it up.
I was literally yakking it up, yeah. Which, by the way, happens at altitude. It's not an uncommon thing that people will throw up. And so I ended up doing chocolate bars, which were frozen solid. I didn't take that into consideration. Like I got a Snickers bar, but it got me to the top. But to me, it ended up being very transformational. Cayden, there was that moment when you were, before, for whatever reason, one of your friends gave you As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Yeah, it was, so it was a good friend of mine. His dad, he'd like took it from his dad's library and was like, dude, this book's really good. And then I ended up taking it he loaned it to me, but I still have the copy and that was the copy that I brought up on the mountain. One way or another, it never got back to him, but don't loan your books to me. But I held on to it, and I remember I packed it in my bag and I was reading it in camp at night. And I don't know, like 16 years old, traveling to Africa, kind of a big ordeal. And just like you guys are talking about going inward, maybe at different stages in your life. But I was like, I absorbed it so fast. I read through it like, just a really quick read. So I probably read it a couple times on that trip, but then you caught me reading it one of the nights, and you'd mentioned that Grandpa had read that or had loaned it to you at one point, and then it kind of like restarted, I think, a lot of that journey for you into those kinds of books.
Your grandpa had it memorized.
Oh yeah, and he still does. He's sharp as a tack still.
Exactly.
And the concepts. I mean, that's everything Grandpa's always taught.
So that moment, I'm very grateful for that moment. That was a very big catalyst for me.
Yeah.
And you guys were there. I mean, and you and I have followed a fairly similar, would share books and ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that book, and this isn't the actual copy, this is just one that I carry in my backpack, fell out of his backpack while we were in the Schiffman stuff around the tent. It was actually at that one camp that's when you're looking out over the clouds. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I asked him if he'd just finished reading it. And so I asked him to start reading it. And I read it on the mountain. I don't know if I ever told you that, Lance. I read this on the side of Kilimanjaro.
That's awesome.
And you've read this. I mean, you know this content very well. And I mean, there's so many things that stood out. But being on the side of Kilimanjaro, I remember this moment reading these words: of all the beautiful truths pertaining to the soul which have been restored and brought to light in this age, none is more gladdening or fruitful of divine promise and confidence than this, that man or woman is the master of thought, the molder of character, and the maker and shaper of condition, environment, and destiny.
True.
That's something that I learned on. Oh, well, that was like a catalyst again, and brought me into a lot of where we're going. What book? What does that mean to you, Lance? I mean, the whole idea of we're in control.
While we're on the mountain, as a man thinketh, just what you read. I just had a feeling, that was the key. Like being on the mountain, it made you feel the presence of you. It wasn't just what you were thinking. Like you're in the elements, right? You're feeling from rainforest, like really dense, intense heat with a ton of humidity, all the way up to 20, 30 below in 5 days. And you really have to tap into you. Like you really need to go deep inside to just be present with yourself. Because Kilimanjaro, you're not going to die on the mountain. People have, but you're not going to if you're in decent shape. And unlike Elbrus. But, the key's the feeling. It's not what you think, it's what you feel. And that's what I truly believe. And that's what I learned when I went on these endurance races with you, the mountains with both of you, was what does it feel like? Not what do I think it's going to be like, but what does it feel like? Because the feeling's the knowing, right? The father of thought, the feeling, the mother, the nurturing, gathering it through the heart, and then the birth of the son, which is the actual manifestation of what we do. So that's really when that set in for me. Just being in the elements and being in nature.
I kind of had this moment on the mountain where I had a lot going on in my life at the time. And I was playing a lot of blame game, blaming others, whomever, choose whoever, companies, government, neighbor, whatever,
Yep.
And I came away from that, although it's taken years and years and years to understand it. But hey, I'm in control. I can't blame anyone else.
It's true.
And at 16, that's pretty cool that you could read that. And did you come out with anything from that book?
Yeah, that was kind of the first time, other than hearing you and like Grandpa, people like Lance in my life that would give that wisdom out freely. It was the first time that I'd found it on my own in a book or kind of sourcing that information for myself. And it's different for each phase of life. And so, now I'm hearing it and it reminds me of like extreme ownership, like Jocko Willink talks about, and things like that, where like you have to take responsibility for the things that you're doing, and you are the maker of your destiny. You're the molder of your character, of the outcome of your life. You have that power in your hands. And at the time, it was more like the creative side of it was really fascinating to me. And like, it just kind of opened up this door of like, it's so much bigger than just me. And it's cool how these mountains teach that same principle as we're out there. Because those sunrises, like there's something different about being on the top of a mountain. I remember Rainier really well when we were up on Rainier, that like the way that it comes across the horizon. Yeah. And the sunrises, it's just different when you're that high up on the mountain and after you've already climbed for so many days to get to that point. And the book teaches that same thing. It's just reminding you that it's so much bigger than yourself, and you have the control to choose how the outcome is for you. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, it's different in each time that I read it, different each time I climb a mountain. But at the time it just kind of opened those doors for me.
I remember reading in The Power of Now with Edgar Tolle. Mm-hmm. In there, he actually talks about, people don't even know it, but they go to mountains. They go to do endurance sports. They do a lot of this stuff, rock climbing, because it forces them in the present moment. Mm-hmm. Like you can't use your phone.
Exactly.
You can't, you have to be present. Mm-hmm. And there's healing in that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think without people even knowing it, mountaineering can be healing.
It has been for me. Yeah, very cathartic. being on the mountains. Absolute healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was going through a huge struggle, pre-Kilimanjaro. And it was a huge breakthrough for me. Just to have peace in my life again,
Oh, I loved it. It was such a great experience. Now, for anyone who's wondering about Kilimanjaro here, the base camp, I had to look this up, 4,670 meters. So a little low, about 1,200 meters lower than summit.
Mm-hmm.
And that last summit day, it's an alpine summit. So we always start at like 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
And then just start going. And that's when I was puking and throwing up, and we just started going.
We weren't very nice to you about it. Now that I think back on it, Joe's throwing up again, and we're like cheers and hot cocoa and
well, we had
ready for the climb.
We had to make sure he summited.
Yeah, I guess we were there to help motivate him, keep it positive,
and we weren't going to go without him.
Yeah,
so it was no, we need to keep going.
Yeah,
sorry, Joe.
That was great.
We were poking fun. I remember.
Well, remember I had that mix, and I'm like, Joe, you gotta drink this mix that I made.
You're like, this is your medicine.
Yeah,
this gets you to the top.
And it was just tons of nitric oxide, everything. And you're like, hey,
it got me to the top.
It was amazing.
It got me to the top.
But it was frozen.
But everything
in the frozen Nalgene bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also giving us an understanding of how far we can push the human spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
How far we can go when we don't think we can go any further.
Mm-hmm.
I love that about mountaineering. That's one of the things that I take away from that.
Every time we climbed one of those mountains, it was like, I thought I trained for this, and then day 6, 7, you're like, okay, I need to do better with my training, but you made it. We pushed. It
was cool. I had a unique perspective on those mountains, and I look forward to future mountains with you guys too, where growing up, watching you do Ironmans and watching you guys do your cycling endurance events, it was like nothing could stop you. And so as a kid, it's like, this guy's invincible. And to be on Kilimanjaro, I think that was the first time, maybe I watched it a little bit with the St. George Ironman. I remember you were struggling on that one.
Yeah, it was a good one.
But Kilimanjaro was one of the first times that I was like, oh, my dad's me. He's not, there's nothing different. He's trained more than I have, but even my dad can get kicked down. Even my dad's throwing up and I'm feeling fine. It was pretty cool to see that you're human and that we can push each other.
Joe is?
Yeah, that Joe's human.
Oh,
yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Well, growing up, he wasn't.
He's a machine.
He's a machine. I remember in the heat of the big business days, you were still finding time to bike 3 hours, swim 45 minutes, run, and spend time with your family and all of your business. It was crazy.
Joe got me into all this.
Yeah.
It was that one comment, let's go do Kilimanjaro. And then we did the cycling together.
Oh my gosh. We did loaded jaw.
Well, when our first race together was Tour of Utah.
Oh, that's right.
That was our very first race. That was my very first bike ride with all you guys, was Tour of Utah, which is the toughest stage.
Brutal.
In all of cycling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I threw my bike down when I finished. I literally threw it on the ground.
It finishes at Snowbird, up Snowbird Canyon. Oh my gosh.
No, and my cousin's there an hour and a half before us, and he's all showered, and he's like, hey guys, that was a nice ride. I'm like, I love you. Screw you.
we got to get him on Aconcagua. We got to get him to come back to Aconcagua.
Exactly. Yeah, the next mountain.
That summit day was, I remember going up, pole, just kind of have your hands in your pocket and just one by one. You guys were singing, but here's a good thing about surrounding yourself with people that are helping you with your goal.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, it's hard to tell what would have happened if I didn't have you two.
Yeah.
And so I'm very grateful for it. So thanks.
The power of being with people
Mm-hmm.
and pushing each other and motivating, for sure.
Which I want to get into in Elbrus, the next one, because there was a moment in there that
was pretty key. So we did that. And then when did we do Elbrus? That was
the following year.
Was the following year?
Yeah.
Was it 13 or 14?
August of 2013.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because Rainier was 14.
And I was going into school. So
that's right. So we decided to do Elbrus. Elbrus is the highest peak in Europe. The numbers on Elbrus is, it's in Russia, but it's the highest peak in Europe, and it's 18,510 feet, or 5,642 meters. Now, the difference between those two mountains, though, Kilimanjaro is not very technical, like you said. There is snow at the top, but Elbrus was technical. So we had to train differently, didn't we?
It's like a snow dome, that was a lot tougher.
Way colder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you remember, a few weeks before, there was 5 people that died on the mountain.
Hello, everyone. Joe Morton here for a Cup of Joe podcast. I want to say thank you to our sponsor today, King Cool Plunge. These guys are incredible. I love this product that they've prepared. It allows you to be able to get into cold plunging and stay consistent with that, whatever temperature you want to set it at. Has a filtration system. It looks cool. It looks amazing. I love their colors. I love cold plunging for the purpose of just overall health and wellness of body, mind, and spirit. I love the way I feel when I use it. Helps me to become present in the moment, very mindful. There is no way that you cannot be in the present moment when you get into a cold plunge. And King Cool Plunge is a phenomenal product for that. Check them out, kingcoolplunge.com, and use the discount code ACOJ. King Cool Plunge is spelled KINGKOOL Plunge. Their Instagram handle is King Cool Plunge, or their website is kingcoolplunge.com. So check them out. Thank you very much. Make it a great day. Oh, that's right.
A couple weeks before.
The wind.
Yeah. And 1 or 2 of the bodies they didn't find because of the crevasses at the top. The winds just picked them right up because they would get up to 70, 80 miles an hour on the top of that mountain. So.
Well, do you guys remember, because the wind started picking up when we were right close to the summit, and there was a group before us that had turned around.
It was the 2 Russian doctors.
Yeah. They had turned around because it was so bad, and it gave up just like a window to be able to get up on the summit, but they had already turned around.
What was it? It was maybe 200, 300 meters?
It was right there.
Well, yeah, we were about an hour from summit. I remember because
which is really
the 2 guys, they were right next to us at base camp. If you remember, they were drinking vodka the whole time. They're like, it keeps.
I don't remember them at base camp.
Oh no,
I don't remember talking.
They kept inviting us every night. Lance, come drink vodka. It makes you warm. I'm like, no, I won't be able to climb. I'm not going to have any with you guys. But they did it. And remember, the one doctor had the urn of his dad's ashes. And the last wish was his dad's ashes wanted to be spread on the summit of Kilimanjaro.
Elbrus.
Yeah. And remember when we left at 1:32 in the morning, it started snowing on us, so we're wet. And those 2 guys took off. Like they just disappeared, remember? Like they just took off. And then, like you said, when they came back, I think we were about an hour or so from summit, and they're like, you guys can't go. Mm-hmm. Like, don't get up there because you guys, it's a waste of time. And we were in like the 2nd saddle, if I remember right.
It was just after a big climb. And we like kind of met them. I remember.
Yep. And they're like, don't go. And I remember when we waited for Tara, because remember when we had that little side deal, and you're the one that set the tone and the pace for that, Joe. I remember like in detail because she was struggling to get in cadence with us as we were going. And we were like, let's put her at the top. Let's put her in front. She'll set the pace for us, and then we'll make sure all of us summit. But because of that and that delay and just doing the pole that we had learned on Kilimanjaro, there was only 2 groups to summit that day, and we were one of them, if you remember. And it was because of that team aspect that you talk about. Like whoever's struggling, if you guys can just take a pause and pull everyone together, the window opened up. The winds, they fell off to like 15, 20 miles an hour for probably about an hour or so. And then they picked up again as all 3 of us were sliding down the mountain illegally.
Was it illegal?
Well, they were really mad. We had crampons on.
I remember.
And we're sliding down on the back of our backpacks, going really fast. Like, they're like, you guys are going to die. And like, whatever. My legs don't work anymore.
I like the Arnold Schwarzenegger Russian accent.
No, this was one of the doctors. I'm copying him exactly. So
it's his voice.
But because of that, like you're saying, Joe, we made it. We summited. And I remember, like, right before the summit, I think, Cayden, you had taken off a little bit, and Joe, you were probably about 20 or 30 feet. I was by myself, and I collapsed on my ice axe and just started crying. And the tears were like frozen on my face. And I was like, okay, this is like a humbling, sacred moment in my life. Summited another mountain. We made it because we helped a dear friend get her cadence back. And if you remember, when we got to the top, it was just this unbelievable, humbling feeling. You know, you don't summit these mountains and beat your chest and say, hey, I just conquered this mountain. It's the most humbling experience in the world. And it gives you a different perspective on life, not only being at the top, but just what you accomplished and who you accomplished it with. Mm-hmm. And that's what I remember. And I just had, the tears were just frozen on my face going, okay, this is one of those sacred moments. This is one of those breakthroughs for me to know what I have the capability of doing and really finding out about myself.
It's so beautiful. And the importance of a coach. Do you remember Dan was our guide? And he spoke Russian.
And he's fantastic.
He's fantastic. Yeah. And when those guys were coming down, he said to them in Russian, don't turn around. Don't, guys, we're so close.
Yes.
And they said, no, because it was windy. To be fair, it was very windy. Like, so windy. Remember, we had to have this is again why it was technical versus Kilimanjaro. I mean, we were roped up the whole way.
Yep.
And we had to follow a guided rope because you couldn't even see up.
We were placing flags, if you remember.
Half a foot in front of your face. It's just so windy. There were years that more people died on Elbrus than Everest. Sometimes because of the wind. Those guys turned away and he kept saying, no, you're so close.
Yeah.
Had we not had that guide, I mean, we wouldn't have known how close we were.
Agreed.
Yeah. And 300 meters when you're at that altitude can feel like it probably did take us an hour and a half, but we made it.
Yeah.
We had a coach who told us exactly where to go.
It's important to have that coach, a mentor. I mean, it's critical in life to have that. I just think we would steer off path into crazy directions if we didn't have the experience of other people.
Totally. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, something happened on Elbrus that I think was really beautiful. Lance, you introduced us to Genshai. My hat here.
On Elbrus.
Yeah. And you gave us this coin.
That's right. That is right.
I'm wearing the hat because I just love this word, first of all.
Thanks for representing, Joe.
Yeah. And Cayden's got his in his hand there.
I've got mine in my pocket. Yeah.
This happened on Elbrus. We're talking 10 years ago. And here we are.
10 years.
That's amazing.
And you were just starting with this at that time. Tell us about the word Genshai. Tell us about how you kind of came up with this.
Well,
because I think it's very fitting that it happened on a mountain for us, at least, to hear that.
Well, I gifted it to both of you guys because it was just an incredible experience spending time with both of you, getting to know you better on Kilimanjaro, and you're like brothers to me. So it was just this sacred moment of, hey, I want to gift you this touchstone to say thank you. I love you both. And what an amazing experience to be together. And, you know, Genshai, Genshai, means in sacred writ to never treat another in a manner that would make them feel small, including yourself. And when I was introduced to that about 13, 14 years ago, all I heard was that last part, never to treat myself small. You know, and it's been used throughout India and Southeast Asia for a long time. It was actually in Gandhi's circles. A gentleman by the name of Praveen Shakur, who taught one of my dear mentors, Kevin Hall, he introduced that word to me. And I was going through the toughest part of my life, a huge transition in my life. And all I heard that day when he taught it to me was to never treat myself small, which flipped a switch. And it was like, I need to stand up and be a better man. You know, I need to represent and be a better father for my daughters. And I went home and did research on the word, and I'm like, man, there's not a lot of stuff on this word. And it became part of my life. And as you know, I have a nonprofit with Genshai that's basic human needs, and we teach self-love. Like, because if you truly ask yourself, everybody that's listened to this podcast, ask yourself the question, do I truly, authentically, wholeheartedly love myself? I mean, just pause with that. Do you honestly love yourself? Because I believe that the golden rule is flawed. Love thy neighbor as thyself. If you do not love yourself, how can you honestly love somebody else? You can only love to the capacity you love yourself. So that word was just a trigger for me. That's why I carry the coin with me in my pocket, just to remind myself that how amazing we are as humans. You know, and if we're a different color, a different religion or whatever, it doesn't matter. We're human. It doesn't matter. Don't treat anybody small. Because if you feel superior in one setting, you're definitely going to feel inferior in another. So that's what the word taught me. And the deeper meaning, Genshai, if you look at the etymology, Gen means beginning or birth. Like genetics, Genesis, Gen means beginning or birth, and Shai in sacred writ means the gift. So the beginning or birth of the gift, who is the gift? It's each one of us. And that's what we need to remember. Like, especially with the crazy times that we have right now in this world, we have to remember how important we are as a whole to humanity. Each one of us. So, yeah, that's why I gifted it to you guys. It was amazing. And it's just been an incredible journey ever since, just to find that self-love. And you find that on the mountain. You find it on the mountain. Like, you can honestly, truly love yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you remember that moment when he...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I remember. And we were with Lance and... What was Lance's friend's name?
Oh, Dan, you mean?
Or just Lance. Lance is right here. Dan's friend, Jared.
Jared, yeah.
And Jared's dad.
That's right.
They were with us as well. And
that's right.
Yeah. I remember the meal we had. I mean, we were sitting there eating, we had like tomato and cucumber salad and borscht.
And then whatever we didn't finish was cut up into smaller pieces the next night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I ate this.
I had this yesterday. Yeah, no, but I do remember it was really tender moment. And it's like the book. It's like going on a big mountain. I mean, it hits differently at different times and different phases, different transitions of my life, of our lives. And it's cool. Like I think the original coin I may have actually lost, because I don't think this is the original production that you'd had of it. But yeah. I have this one now. And regardless of which coin it was, I've carried the coin in all over the world. It lived with me in Ecuador for 2 years, and nice. It's a constant reminder of that, and that's the part that hit me the most, is loving myself.
Yeah, and you taught me that, Joe. Like, your Positive In book and that. I remember when you published that and you signed that for me. Like, you already had that energy of positive self-love and all of that when the starting of Zango, when I first met you.
We all have to be reminded of it. And I'm grateful for that. And Lance, you are a great example to us all, to me in particular, about self-love and then caring for others.
And I struggle with it.
We all do. Yeah. We need to be reminded
there's
of that.
Days that I'm just like, I don't even want to get out of bed. Like, this is a shit show going on right now. And I'm just like, So even the reminder's more powerful now. And
where'd you come up with the idea to give this? Because this is part of the program, Genshai, where You can go to Genshai Giving, right?
Genshai.com,
and you can buy these, and you can give a person this, and you can tell the reason why you're giving them the coin. I think it's beautiful. I've given several out over the years.
So Kevin, when he was over in Vienna, Praveen told him a story of when he was a little boy, and his mom would take him down the streets of India in Calcutta, like totally impoverished. And, there's like less than 1% are wealthy, and everybody else is in abject poverty. And he said that his mom would walk him down the street with all of the people that were homeless. And she says, if anybody needed anything and you had it, you give it. But she said the key is when you have money or coins in your pocket, you get down eye level with that person and you place it in their hand and you tell them that, hey, you're my brother and my sister and I love you. And you put it in their hand. You don't throw it in the tin or throw it in the ground where they're at. You get eye level because they are your equal. They're just in a different situation in their life. And he said he remembers that. That's how his mom taught him Genshai. And anytime that they were being oppressed or pushed down from the elites, she would say, you need to practice Genshai. And I remember it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, when a lot of us have that inspiration. And I woke up after hearing that story and I literally saw a Genshai coin. And I'm like, what if we gift somebody a touchstone, but tell them the story of how they mentored, changed my life, helped me through something, and gave that to them, but tell them the story while they're still alive. Don't tell it at their funeral. Hey, this is how this person changed my life. Like, tell them. Gift them the coin, but tell them the story. And I remember the first coin that I minted, I gave to my mom. She's
amazing.
Yeah. She is my greatest mentor. And I gave it to my mom and we had a cry fest for about 2 hours. I told her exactly what she had done in my life, how she mentored me, the lessons that she taught me in that. And then the second one I gave to my dad, out of respect and the lessons that I've learned from him. And then the third one I gifted was to Norm Bangeter, who was the governor of the state. He was like my second dad. Be careful what you manifest, because he became my stepdad, right? Be careful what you manifest, but just an amazing human. And I remember it was about 3 years before he passed. And we sat down on the couch and I sat and I told Norm and gifted him a coin. And I said, Norm, if you remember, you sold me my first apartments, because I moved out when I was in high school. Like parents going through a tough divorce for us kids. And I moved out. So I finished my senior year on my own, getting ready to be married. I was just on path and I was scared to death. And I made an offer on these apartments at 18 to the governor of the state of Utah at the time, scared to death. And I don't know how I ended up with him. That's a whole other story. But I told him, I said, you were the one that believed in me again at 18. And we just cried on the couch. And he's a very, very solid statesman. And it was one of those sacred moments in my life, because at 18, he changed the trajectory of me being an entrepreneur. My dad was always an entrepreneur. He owned his own business, but he had closed it down. And my dad is just a tremendous mentor to me. But at that point, I didn't know what to do. And I was off to the races. And we've done a ton of properties together and investments together, and we've had great success together in this world and been very blessed. Started.
That's crazy.
At 18, 4 months out of high school.
Well, I need to thank him too then, because you've taught me a lot over the years.
It's been amazing. Just an incredible ride. Yeah. It's amazing how we just keep propelling each other through different situations.
I feel so fortunate to have climbed Kilimanjaro with the two of you.
Yeah.
Elbrus, Rainier, a lot of events.
We have.
And guys, Aconcagua.
Are we committing on this podcast?
I'd commit to it. Yeah. I've been wanting to do it since.
So I have to start.
And he speaks Spanish now, so he can help us with the. That's, by the way, for anyone watching, that's the highest peak the highest outside the Himalayas.
Which it's It's what, 23?
23.
It's a serious mountain.
It's pretty serious.
Yeah. Okay, I'm in.
We're going to do it. I thought about it. I'm in. Okay, we're going to get that on the calendar. But thank you for both of you joining. And this is beautiful. This mention of Genshai and your history of it. And I feel very fortunate to not only have climbed these mountains with you two, but to have that moment and to see the birth of this coming to pass, and then what it's coming. And you did great work in Hawaii, and thank you for that. Helping the horrible
Mothers of Maui.
Yeah, Mothers of Maui. You guys just did that fundraiser. Beautiful.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Genshai, check it out. It's great organization. Does great work. Lance Schiffman.
Thank you, brother.
Cayden Morton.
It's an honor to be here. Love both of you.
Love you too.
Thanks for being mentors in my life.
Yeah, equally.
It's been tremendous.
An honor to be able to sit here with you guys.
And it continues.
It continues.
But I brought 2 more coins for each of you. And I challenge you to give them to the next person that does something amazing in your life. So that's the key. The key is to keep passing it on.
I was already going through, like, I got to get on and get another coin so that I can give it out. So
I brought them.
Perfect timing.
Thanks, Joe. It's been an honor and just humbled to be here with you.
Love you, brother.
Thanks, brother. Love you too.
Love you, man.
Love you guys. Thank you.
My son.
Yep. Pops.
Can't beat that.
Thanks for joining this episode of A Cup of Joe with Lance Schiffman, Cayden Morton. And my name's Joe Morton. Thanks for joining as we've talked about Kilimanjaro, Elbrus, Genshai, and all the adventures. Make it a great day.